Hello and welcome to The Call. You're probably wondering what you've just hit play on. I'm the Millennial Coach and I'm here to empower, inspire and get to the heart of your professional or personal development matters. And in some cases it may be both. Whatever it is you're working on in your life, I'm going to be here every week helping you find tools and ideas to make real and sustainable change and assist in helping you achieve the goals you've been struggling with. Every single day I'm out on the road coaching and helping people find and rediscover direction and also figuring out who they truly are. We're going to talk about everything from mental health and mindfulness to relationships, dating, looking at the love language, looking at business and leadership with diversity in the workplace, also productivity and performance development and money. This is your chance to take some time out from life to think about where it's going. Are you at a stage where you need to reset, recharge or reinvent? So if I've already got your ears, I hope I'll have your hearts too. You can comment on the show and reach out to me on Twitter. I'm the Millennial C, D-A, Millennial C. And also you'll find me on Instagram, the Millennial Coach. This week we're going to start with a discussion around mindfulness. How does it exist in your daily routine, your relationships and your outlook, and how does it impact your everyday experience? We're all individuals, but I'm also going to look at the data that exists around the mental health experience of different backgrounds too, to find out how different parts of society can have different experiences. I'll also share a few ideas for building mindfulness into a healthier, happier lifestyle. I'll also turn this into a party live every Thursday on Itch FM. So if you want to tune in, it's itch.fm, and if you want a different experience where you have music and more laughter, please tune in. We also keep consistent with our lecture at hand. So today we're going to be talking about mindfulness. And being mindful is about living within yourself, not feeling scared to express yourself when you need to. Nipsey was more or less a reincarnation of Tupac if you really think about it. A man who wanted to celebrate who he was and also celebrate all the people around. So the question I ask you guys is, who are you celebrating right now? And how are you celebrating them? So mindfulness, what is that? There's a lot of people going through a lot of things at the moment. So if you think about what might be in your lives, allowing you to stay busy and not be still, could it be toxic relationships? Could it be your workplace? Because we're going to get into all of this at some point. Could it be money problems, financial pressures? Sometimes being a parent is not easy. So sometimes, when you hear people saying, I don't want children, I don't think it's a bad thing for them to make that judgment or decision on their life. Sometimes when you're out and about, you might be in the workplace and you're not really heard or you're not really seen. What does that look like or feel like? And other ways or other things that impact mental health is, I would definitely say, social media. Those of you that tend to stare at your phones on a regular basis, you're not thinking about anything else but who's followed you or who's posted. Sometimes I'm on London Underground and I just watch people. They're not even present. Their mind is so over-occupied with things that are so, I would say, unuseful. So you need to think about that. According to the UK government website, mental health conditions are really impacted by the workplace. So if that's you and you're listening, honestly, don't be ashamed. I remember having someone say to me they had an issue with their mental health. They had no way of having an outlet, which we'll go into later. And he said that he was a bit scared to tell anyone at work, because once you're labelled a little bit cuckoo, and you know what that feels like. People just think, nah, stay away from that one. He's got a twitch or she's got a twitch. So you got to remember that mindfulness isn't something, or mental health isn't something to be ashamed of. Mental health is something that we all should be focused on. We focus on our physical health. Who goes to the gym? Put your hand up. Well, both my hands are up. But I'm in the gym. If I can get there as early as 5 a.m., I will be in the gym. But when I get home, I meditate. Because how you start your day is what actually, in my opinion, gives you that peace of mind of how you're going to move through the day. For example, has anyone ever thought about when they leave home to go to work, how much energy do you exert before you even get into the workplace? You get on London Underground or you get in the car and you're upset because someone pushed you. You're upset because there's no seat. So think about the amount of energy that you're wasting on the way to work. And then you might actually have a little argument with somebody because they're too pressed up against you. So starting your day, I would always encourage you, listen to something that brings you joy. If it's Tupac and Nipsey, go for it. If you want to sing and listen to something that just allows you to be free for 10 minutes every single morning, just try it for a month and see how you go. Honestly, it'll be good to hear people's feedback once, you've given it a shot and seeing how you feel. So, government, they say stress is one of the biggest factors of mental health. And like I highlighted earlier, there's lots of different reasons stress occur in our life. And I think money is also one of the biggest problems. I think a lot of people have more month than money. And, if you really think about what that means is by probably the 16th of the month, you're broke. So sometimes when I say to people, do you want to go out? They're like, no, I can't because don't have any money left. So structuring your life in a way that is mindful, thinking about how you spend your money, thinking about what you need to be doing once you wake up. I'm not talking about the day. I'm talking about how you're going to prepare yourself for your day. That's an important thought process. And what you go to bed with is really what you wake up with. So if you've gone to bed angry, trust me, whatever you're focused on that night is what you're going to wake up thinking about. So I really would advise people to, try your best to think about different strategies in the morning to get yourself ready for work. If it means going to the gym to get those endorphins going, if it means going for a walk, get up 45 minutes earlier just to go for a walk around the block. If it means having a conversation with someone that brings you positive energy in the morning, that's what I would recommend. So 1 in 4 people in the UK will have a mental health problem at some point. And I can strongly admit that there's times as a female and we have hormones, guys. I don't know about the men out there, but us women, we really do go through it, right, girls? So if any girls that are hip hop heads, if you're feeling what I feel sometimes, like literally you want to punch someone in the throat because he asked you a dumb question. And I'm not just talking about your boyfriends. It could be your dad. It could be a guy at work. You're just like, seriously? So I don't know if and the thing is, I don't know if that's classed as mental health. Is our hormones, I need someone to tweet me now, is our hormones a form of mental health issues? Because trust me, I heard a friend of mine had told me one of her colleagues had slapped someone at work because of her hormones and she ended up getting sacked. Now, I personally would go to a union and challenge that because I think that it's important to know, for people to understand that as women, we're not always in control of how we feel. So anyone that salutes me at this stage, females, I need you to start representing. Anyone that salutes me, the men out there need to really, really appreciate that there's 2 weeks, sometimes even a week of the month that you just need to just go out with your boys. Just don't come home. We're good. So, mental health. One of the things people talk about a lot, and I honestly think it's an overkill word now, is anxiety. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling I don't feel good. So more time when people are saying that, I'm just like, so are you just jumping on the bandwagon so we can feel sorry for you? Are you seriously feeling anxious? And I know people that are genuinely anxious. I have a friend that cannot take the underground, and she lives very far from where I live. So when we do meet up, I remember there was a time she called me in such stress because she couldn't figure out how to get to my destination by the tube because she couldn't handle it. That is anxiety at its realist. So if you think about, things where you start getting hot, you start sweating, you start feeling dizzy or you're nervous. Honestly, if you're out in public, if that was me, I'll go into a shop, whether it's Pret, Costa, wherever, and just tell the staff, I'm not feeling very well. Can I have a glass of water? Just so you can relax and just get your breath. Because when you feel like that, what people tend to do is get more anxious. They don't actually stop. And then that's when things get really bad. So remember one thing, mental health is about how we feel, we think, and we behave. Depression is one of the most common forms of mental health. And I'm I'm very familiar with a lot of people who have, confided in me that they have mental health issues, and it's no joke, because you don't know if tomorrow you're going to see them. So if any time you are really feeling, dark, and sometimes with depression, what it does is that you don't actually know where it comes from. You might just feel empty, but you can't really put your finger on why you're feeling empty. Everything in your life is fine. You may, your rent or your mortgage is paid. You've got food in the fridge. Your family are well, but you just have this emptiness. So if you ever feel like that, you need to call like the Samaritans, call a friend. Don't be alone. Mental health is, I would say, a silent killer, just like heart attacks. Because when people decide that they're going to end their lives, it's no joke. You've got Robin Williams, who actually, apparently diagnosed with an illness and decided to end his life. But apparently he'd been feeling depressed for many years. So really, was it the illness that, encouraged him to end his life? Or was it, seriously, the fact that he just didn't want to deal with life anymore? If you think about Fantasia Barrino, if anyone remembers her from American Idol, she tried to take her life, and thank God she didn't, because she had sent messages to her manager, who actually rushed to her house and found her unconscious and obviously called the ambulance. So, if people are feeling low, and one thing, a very close person to me always says, when you don't hear from people, maybe something is going on. And that's where people, need to realize that being mindful, it's not just about thinking about yourself, but it's also thinking about people and where they're at in their lives. Have you reached out to someone you should have reached out to a month ago? Have you made the effort to say, let's meet up and have coffee? Because having telephone relationships really isn't a focus in my life. Anyone that wants a telephone relationship, honest to God, I wish them well, because they're not hanging out with me, because friendships to me are a privilege. And the reason they're a privilege is because you need to learn to be vulnerable. And people have to earn that vulnerability. Earning vulnerability is a very important aspect of life. So mental health in the UK is a big issue. And if you think about what type of guidance there is in the workplace, I don't think there is. I think there's a lot of conversation. But if you truly, truly thought about who you would go and speak to, who would really, you would feel like would trust enough to say you're really feeling like you're having a breakdown. So I would always say, and I do think the Americans have got it right, having your counsellor or therapist on speed dial. I think that is quite an important aspect of the way you deal with life. You need someone to talk to, even if it's external to your family and friends. Having that person or someone that you trust to discuss issues that you can't talk to anyone else. And if any of you ever thought about going to see a counsellor, the NHS actually have a free service that entitles you to 6 free sessions. I think 6 or 8 free sessions. It's called IAPT, IAPT. Please Google it. Please get in contact at your local branch, and you can self-refer. You don't have to be go through your doctors. You can self-refer. Mental health really is an issue in our society, and I think we need to really focus on how we can support each other. According to the Mental Health Organization, ethnic groups have different rates and experiences of mental health, reflecting their different cultural and socio-economic contexts and access to culturally appropriate treatments. In general, people from the black and minority ethnic groups living in the UK are more likely to be diagnosed with mental health problems and more likely to be diagnosed and admitted. And also, unfortunately, and I don't know why this is, and I think as Boris has taken the lead as our Prime Minister, I'm actually going to give him the benefit of the doubt, everyone. So anyone that wants to come and slag me off, that's absolutely fine. You won't get a response from me. But the reason I say this is because you have to give people room to grow, irrespective of people's pasts. And you think about yourself when I'm saying this, irrespective of people's past, we all make mistakes. So let's see the outcome Obviously, if the person repeats the same behaviour, then you can't give them any more chances. But when it comes to black and ethnic minorities, there is really poor outcome from the NHS for treatment. And this is according to the Mental Health Act, so don't try and come and sue me because I can't help you. And unfortunately, with a lot of black and ethnic minorities, they are likely to disengage from the mainstream mental health services. And it actually leads to a lot of social exclusion and deterioration in their mental health. And recently, I remember I saw a girl. She looked like she was having the best time. It was 8 a.m. in the morning. I'm heading to the station to work. She was dancing, and she looked fantastic, and it just made my heart sink. You know, someone who's got mental health issues is just out. I don't know the circumstance, but what we do in society, we shy away from it. Different groups are marginalized for different reasons. And sometimes we need to just reach out and let people know that, you know what, we're there. So guys, we're back to the mental health conversation. It's not just black people, obviously, that are suffering. Irish people are going through it too. So Irish people living in the UK have a much higher hospital admission rate for mental health problems than any other ethnic group. This is according to mentalhealth.org.uk. In particular, they have higher rates of depression, alcohol problems, and at greater risk of suicide, which is really quite sad. So if we think about, like we just discussed, suicide, in terms of, you know, what mentalhealth.org states, there is a notion that there is a level of social disadvantage amongst Irish people in the UK, including poor housing and social isolation. It's just really, really important to really think about different cultures who are going through, we're all going through the same thing. Just because we have different skin colours, do not think that, you know, I'm better off than Becky down the road, you know, Becky with the good hair, as they say. We don't want to get into any fights on tonight's show, but you know what I mean? It's really important for you guys to really start reaching out to people for who they are. And I do talk about this when I go into businesses, and I talk about being human. I don't talk about race, I talk about being human. I think we've, as a society, when it comes to mental health, or even when it comes to just showing love, we have forgotten how to be human. The statistics on the numbers of Asian people in the United Kingdom with mental health problems are inconsistent. So mental health problems are often unrecognised or not diagnosed in this ethnic group. However, Asian people have better rates of recovery from schizophrenia, which may be linked to the level of family support. Suicide is low among Asian men and older people, but high in young women, Asian women, compared with any other ethnic group. So I just think as well, we need to think about, regardless of what group we're from, I do think we all need to get informed about what's happening with different cultures, because sometimes you might meet someone, I don't know, at work and find out, and you're from different backgrounds, and you're actually really, really similar. I don't know how many people that's happened to, but that happened to me today. I work in different organizations, and I went to an office, and I met a Jewish woman. And honestly, I haven't laughed so much. It was an absolute gift today to be in her presence. So things like that, where you start learning about a different culture, is really, really interesting, because you start realizing everyone really, as much as we try to segregate ourselves, we really are not any different from each other. And I really, really want or encourage people to really take that seriously. An Asian community, what I do like is, you know, there is a tight-knit family where everyone supports, and, you know, and I've seen it with friends of mine, and I do love that level of, I would say, interlinking, because everyone checks in on each other. So I do think if there is more or better rates of recovery of schizophrenia, what can we learn from that? From, you know, different cultures, what can we learn from that? There's a lot to say about different techniques that are used, you know, and I'm not talking about, you know, because obviously not even with some cultures, with people who have mental health, if you're in the wrong hands, unfortunately, you won't get the right treatment. And that's why it's really important. If you start off going through NHS, working with IAPT, I'm sure that you will find a counsellor that you can resonate with. But don't think, something was brought to my attention during the break, is don't think that you can't go beyond IAPT, because you only have a certain amount of sessions. And if anyone's ever watched the film Antoine Fisher, it's a true story. It's about a young man who was, honestly, it was horrific. It was abuse. He was abused by his foster mother. And he ended up joining the military, where the US military, or US Navy, where he met a therapist, and he was only allowed 3 sessions. The 3 sessions forced him to react, where he became more aggressive outside, he became more violent. And it's not because he was a violent person, it's just because he needed someone to talk to. And he also, this is the thing I think as well of mental health, we need tools to manage our mental health. Also, guys, as much as exercise is good, also your foods are important, and how much exposure to social media will support your recovery if you are suffering from any form of mental health. That is how you encourage mindfulness into your world. You start thinking, you start being more present, and you start making different choices that you're thinking about. You don't just do it because it's what you do. You need to start changing what you've often done, because most of the time we're creatures of habit, and habits are not always good, especially if you're addicted to a substance. So we need to think about looking at different avenues to support the mental health. And I think as well, looking at different communities can also support you in your development. So the mental health organization continues talking about Chinese people. There is very little knowledge of the extent of mental health problems in the Chinese community. It's been suggested that the close-knit family structure of the Chinese community provides strong support for its members. While this may be beneficial, it may generate feelings of guilt and shame, resulting in people feeling stigmatized and unable to seek help. Now, one thing I do disagree with, I think anyone that feels as if their head is going to explode with the amount of feelings, the emotions, I think we all feel shame, guilt, and feelings, we're feeling slightly stigmatized. If we say that we're feeling like we want to have a breakdown, people are like, oh my God, and some people just run the other direction, or they just don't talk to you anymore. So I think it's really, really, really important to think about how you can use mindfulness to focus on different aspects of supporting your mental health. So I think one of the things, and I've touched upon it already, is toxic relationships. Now, toxic relationships are relationships that actually don't bring you to your best or bring out your best self. If you are in a relationship where there is fear when you speak, there is fear when you're on your way home to your partner, whether it's male or female, because women, we're not all innocent. So I'm personally not a headache girlfriend. I know that for a fact. But I know women, I've seen women who can be very, very energetic. I think that's the word I'm going to use to be on the safe side. And sometimes, I know sometimes, when we're having our hormones going all over the place, it can impact the way we think and we feel. So it's really about telling the person, I'm not feeling so good today. Can we have a chat? Your partner's not a monster. And if you really are feeling not so good and you're making someone else's life hell, I think you need to start opening up and talking. Because mental health is not something people can see. That's why it is a silent killer. People don't realize that, you have great people. Kurt Cobain. I don't know what was going on in his mind, but he was seen as a genius, but he couldn't take it anymore. Things like that. And what people don't realize is suicide does have a massive impact on the people that love you. Love is one of the most powerful ways to support people with mental health. So those of you that may be struggling, tell someone who loves you what you're going through. So if we think about music and mental health, mindfulness in hip hop. I don't know if anyone's heard of DJ Booth, but I'm starting to fall in love with this dude. So if he's single, holla. But one of the things that he has discussed on his website, which I think is absolutely amazing, is the power of meditation in hip hop. All of us want less thoughts. The calmer the mind, the happier the spirit. So when the mind is settled, bliss. If we have a mind full of fluctuation, then we have a mind full of suffering. When you see people and they're starting off, there's so many thoughts in their mind and it causes suffering and sadness. When you see people who are awake and present and clear, then there's happiness. And that was said by Russell Simmons, Def Jam's co-founder. One of the things and that's how he describes meditation. Meditation has been one of the most powerful tools I've used, where you can when people talk about the law of attraction, I think a lot of people don't actually understand it. I think people say, oh yeah, I've read The Secret, I've watched the video, and they think, okay, so I'm just going to think positive things and everything's going to be all right. Okay, guys, so this is where we start talking about one of the problems, I think, in modern society is when life is not going well, thinking positive is not the only thing that is going to change. You've got to clear out the closet. That means take out the crap, talking to someone, giving yourself space to change your life. A lot of the time, I remember I was living in the Middle East at one point, and I was at a brunch, and someone said to me, yeah, the law of attraction, load of crap. I mean, this person was angry. They weren't upset, they were angry. And I could sense why they were angry, but the thing that I believe they didn't understand is, imagine if you're saying someone's coming around and you haven't tidied up, yeah? Your house or your flat, wherever you live, is a complete mess. Would you just put a white sheet all over your front room? And someone comes in, they can see there's stuff, but it doesn't even make sense because they're like, well, why don't you just tidy it up? That's the same thing with your mind. The same thing with your mind. You cannot bring something new in if you don't make space but to clear out some of the old stuff. It's quite simple. You know when they say out with the old, in with the new? There's a reason for that saying. You can't allow things. It's like if you want a new girlfriend, you met this woman and she's really nice. Well, you met me and I'm really nice and whatever. And then you're still talking to me about your ex-girlfriend who was a nightmare. I would dump you because you're not over her. And to be quite honest, I don't have time to be worrying about your past. And that's the thing, is that we spend time from a mental perspective focused on everything that is going wrong. So what does that say about you being mindful? You're not choosing your thoughts. You're on autopilot. Dangerous. So I would definitely say to people, first of all, love yourself. And that's what I say about I'm not a jealous person. I'm not focused on what other people are doing. I'm focused on what I need to do to make me well. So when it comes to working on yourself, it's not a narcissistic thing. It's something that is healthy. And that means changing your diet. Sometimes when I see people who may be suffering from weight issues, if I'm in an office and what they'll have for lunch is crisps, chocolate, and then a fizzy drink. I actually don't, some people, when people see people that are overweight, they might laugh and think, oh, look at the state. I don't even think it's funny. I actually get sad because I think to myself, how much love do you have for yourself to put your body through that? If you think about what we put in our bodies, and that's why when we think about mental health, we start adding drugs and alcohol and bad food, and then we lose our homes, we start borrowing money, we don't pay it back. That's really not just about the fact that you're having a bad moment. Your mental health is not in check at all. So a lot of the time when I'm working with different clients, it's really important for me to understand what their mindful regime is. And sometimes I give people links to things One of the most powerful ways to think about or to help you become more mindful is having gratitude. And I'm sure so many people are, oh God, I've heard this so many times. But I can tell you now, the people I show love to are the people that are my family, whether you're related to me by blood or you're not. And when people do something nice for you, you should show gratitude. You don't have to, but it's nice for people to feel appreciated. And why I say that is, think about when you're I know there's a lot of people listening, when they're at work, they don't even get thanked for waking up in the morning and coming and doing their job. So some people, you go to work day in, day out for 15 years, same job, you haven't been promoted, and you're upset. But have you ever sat down and said, you know what? I'm grateful that I can actually go to Ibiza for a week with my friends. I'm grateful that I can buy the new Jordans. I'm grateful I can buy the new 97s. I'm grateful I can buy a car. I'm grateful I can even buy food. You see, gratitude isn't about the big things. It's just even grateful that you got a sibling that you check for. So when people talk to me about mindfulness, in my opinion, is just thinking very carefully from your mind. That's it. Let's not overcomplicate it and start The Secret and manifestation and da-da-da-da-da and law of attraction and what, then we talk about the different teachers, Wayne Dyer, then we're going to go and say, oh yeah, and Jana Van Zandt and blah, blah, blah. No, start with yourself. I always say to people, make 2 lists. One of how you want your life to look and one how your life looks. Then make another 2 lists, right? Of the things, how you're going to get there to the things that how you want your life to look. But also on the other side, what you need to let go of. How much time do you self-audit? And I've always coined that phrase. Self-auditing is a way to help you reduce stress, improve creativity, and also it can help combat some level of depression. Looking at, okay, I'm not spending enough time in the morning to prepare for my day. So some people literally wake up, they literally leave, they get to work, they have lunch, and they go home, and they've not thought about the whole process. How many of you could sit here and say that you don't even think about how your life runs? I can say majority of people. You're thinking about the big things. I'm going to go on holiday, or I'm going to buy this. But you're not thinking, you know what? Am I at peace with everything in my life? Because people don't think that way. When it comes to people listening to Itch FM and listening to the DJs and hip hop, the hip hop lifestyle, as DJ Booth has written, is built around making money, having fun, and the idea of hustling till you die. Because no one wants to end up broke and back in the hood. Like Nas said, sleep is the cousin of death. So who has time to meditate when there's money to be made? Even from a fan's perspective, the best rappers are often those who excite us, not sedate us. That's not to say there isn't a small but strong core of meditators in the rap game. So you got people like Russell Simmons, as I just mentioned, Kendrick Lamar, before he passed away, Mac Miller, Jay Electronica, RZA, Big Crit. They all spoke and are probably still speaking about the benefits of mindfulness. So even if, go on YouTube, 10 minutes, put on guided meditation and just close your eyes, sit in the middle of the floor and close your eyes. That's all you need to do. And also, if you're living with people, you have a family, just let them know you need 10 minutes to yourself in the morning. A lot of people feel as well when they got kids, they don't give themselves permission to actually live. And I make it clear when I coach mothers. Remember, they came into your life, not the other way around. So you need to make adjustments to how much time in terms of control you give your kids over you. You've got to control your situation, because if you're not good, whether you're a father, mother, single or married or in a partnership, You need to make sure if you're good, your kids are good. So I think a lot of people at different stages in their life, they forget that they actually need some TLC. So in order not to have a breakdown, my advice to you is to start changing how you look at your life and look at the way you love yourself. And that goes in different ways. So you got to think to yourself, what will you do for love? I want to thank you so much for tuning into the call today, where we discussed part 1 of mindfulness and mental health with me, the Millennial Coach. I pray that you've been able to receive the information with grace and also put some of the activities into practice. As I say goodbye to you now, please do not be disappointed, as I'll be back next week with part 2, where I conclude with some great tips on building mindfulness into your life to support your mindset and improving elements of mental health. Disclaimer, I am not a mental health expert. However, I have dealt with elements of this in various capacities in my line of work. Oh, and guys and girls, please don't forget you can reach me on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram at DA the Millennial Coach. Anytime, I'd love to hear from you. You can make this podcast arrive automatically on your phone or app each week by hitting the subscribe button. And if you found any of the topics discussed in the podcast useful, please share it with a friend or start a conversation today. You never know where it might lead. I'll catch you next time. I am the Millennial Coach, and you've been listening to The Call. Wishing you every success in the week to come. Have a good one.